All right, number 13 says, what is the simplified form? We talked about this in a little video. What is the simplified form of negative 15a squared b squared c squared a to the 0 over 27a b to the 6th c squared b to the negative 3rd? Okay, so first of all, we're going to take care of everything on our first row that we can take care of. Then we take care of everything on our second on it. So numerator first, then denominator, then together. Okay, I see some like terms that need to be taken care of up in the numerator. But first, we see that we have a squared and a to the 0th power. We add our powers, so 2 plus 0 just gives us 2. So that can just be crossed out. Now we have two b's. We have b to the 6th and b to the negative 3rd. I don't have to move that one up here yet. I can, or I can just combine these like terms. I have 6 minus 3, which is going to give me 3. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this as negative 15 a squared b squared c squared over 27a b to the 3rd and c squared. So we treat each of these individually because it's all multiplication. Multiplication says 2 times 3 times 4 is the same as 3 times 4 times 2, right? So I can reorder anything. I can treat things separately and then put them back together. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce negative 15 divided by 27. We can always type that in our calculator. Negative 15 divided by 27. Hit enter. It's going to give us a crazy fraction, but we can hit math, enter, and that turns it into negative 5/9. So I'm going to say negative 5 over 9. Then I know from today's reminder lesson that I have a squared over a. I know I'm subtracting my powers, but my answer, and remember that's a to the first power. I know I'm subtracting my powers, but my answer lives wherever the highest power lives. So the highest power is in the numerator. My answer is going to go in the numerator. So I have 2 minus 1 is going to give me a to the first power. I don't have to write that first, right? That first power. I look over at my b's. I see b to the 3rd and b to the 2nd. So my answer is going to live in the denominator. So I do 3 minus 2. Notice I'm changing which direction I'm going. I said 2 minus 1. Now I'm going 3 minus 2. It always works in the favor of the highest power. So I have b, which is 3 minus 2 gives me 1, so b to the 1st. Now I have my c's. I have c to the 2nd over c to the 2nd. So neither of them are the highest. It doesn't matter which direction I go. 2 minus 2 is 0, and we know c to the 0 is 1. Anything to the 0 is 1. And if I'm doing multiplication, I don't need to include that 1. So my final answer is negative 5/9, and then I'm going to have a in the numerator and b in the denominator. So negative 5a over 9b, which tells me that my answer is D. All right, number 14, what is the range of the function? What is the range of the function? Remember, range goes from the bottom to the top, right? From the bottom to the top. So range of g of x is equal to 3 minus x squared. I'm going to rewrite this in the correct order. Now, what does this tell me? This tells me that I'm going to have a negative shaped parabola, which means it's going to be like this. And I know what that means is I'm going to have a limit up here, and then it's going to go on forever down. And I know that that limit is going to be this guy out here. My parent function is what I always start with. And this one says, now I'm flipping it. So now we have this function. And then over here, since it's outside the parentheses, this tells me it's an up and down movement. So I'm going to move it positive 3. 1, 2, 3. And that's where my new parabola is going to be, which tells me that this is my upper limit of 3, and my lower limit is negative infinity. So if I want to write that, I would say negative infinity is less than y, because I'm talking about my range, which is less than or equal to 3. But I don't need this information. It's implied. So I can say y is less than or equal to 3, which is B. Number 15. What are the roots of the quadratics? What's another term for root? solutions, x-intercepts, all that stuff. So it's asking us, if we look at our answers, it's really asking us to the quadratic function, which is x equals negative b. Remember, this is my a, this is my b, this is my c. So negative 6 is going to give me x equals positive 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. We always do this portion first, which is going to be negative 6 squared is 36, minus 4 times 1 is going to be negative 4 times times positive 8, so plus 8. That'll give me 44. I know that I can take out a perfect square from there of 4. And so I have the square root of 44. I can change that into the square root of 4 times 11, which allows me to change it to the square root of 4 times the square root of 11, which allows me to change this to 2 times the square root of 11. So now I can rewrite this as 6 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 11 over 2. And I know that all 3 of these are divisible by 2. So I can reduce this whole thing to say x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 11, which is a. So 15 is a. Let's keep hustling. 16, what is the quadratic equation with the x-intercepts of 4 and negative 4 and a y-intercept of 8? X-intercept of 4 and negative 4, y-intercept of 8. So automatically, I'm getting rid of, you remember x-intercepts, 4, and this is number 16. 4 and negative 4, I can always do the reverse zero product property by subtracting 4 on both sides to find out what my factors should say and adding 4 to both sides. So I have x minus 4 is equal to 0, and I have x plus 4 is equal to 0. So I know that my two factors should say x minus 4, x plus 4. So I'm going to get rid of c and d. Those are automatically out of the question. Now I just have to figure out which one is going to give me a y-intercept of positive 8. Easiest way for me to do that is I'm going to type both of these into my calculator, both equations for a and b, into my calculator and see which one gives me a y-intercept of 8. So when x is 0, y is 8. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to type in negative 0.5 x times x minus 4 and x plus 4. That's my first equation. And then 0.5, or positive 1/2, times x minus 4, x plus 4. Then I'm going to go straight to a table. And when x is 0, the first equation was 8. The second equation is negative 8. So what did I type in the first equation? I typed in the negative 1/2. So that's going to be a, because that one's a negative 8. 17. The area of a rectangle is modeled by f of x is equal to 2x squared minus 13x, where x represents the rectangle's length in yards. What is the rectangle's length? The total area is 45 square yards. So this models the area. We need this to be, if we know that this is going to be equal to 45, we can set it up that way. So 2x squared minus 13x equals 45 yards. And now we can solve. So I can move this guy over. 2x squared minus 13x minus 45. And then I can plug this into my quadratic formula. Or I can graph it. Either one. My choice. But let's go ahead and plug this into the quadratic formula. X equals positive 13 plus or minus the square root of 13, negative 13 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 45, all over 2 times 2. So what is this out here? I know that 13 squared is 169. So I have the square root of 169. And then negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And negative 8 times negative 45. So that is going to give me 360. So plus 360. Whenever I add those two together, I'm going to get 529. Let's see if that's a perfect square. The square root of 529. It sure is. It's 23. So 23. I have 13 plus and minus 23 over 4. I know I can get rid of the minus because I'm talking about a length. I can only go in positive directions. So I'm going to add these two together and divide by 4. That's going to give me, 36 divided by 4 is going to give me 9. So I know that my answer is D, 9. All right. Number 18. I hope I have enough time to finish. 18. What is equivalent to x plus 3, x minus 4, minus 5, x plus 2. So we're going to FOIL this one. We're going to distribute that one. So x squared minus 4x plus 3x minus 12 minus 5x squared minus 10x. Now combine like terms. I have negative 5x and positive x squared, which gives me negative 4x squared. I have negative 4x, positive 3x, and negative 10x, which gives me negative 11x. And then I have my minus 12. All things are taken care of, and there's my final answer. So negative 4x squared minus 11x minus 12, which is B, 19. The function x squared plus x minus 6 is graphed below. What are the zeros? The zeros just mean x-intercepts, right? So what are the zeros? I'm looking at the graph, and I can see it crosses at 1, 2, negative 3, and positive 1, 2. So I know that it's going to be x equals negative 3 and x equals 2, which is C. And then finally, number 20. Number 20 says, what is the quotient of all that stuff? So we're going to be doing long division. Remember, the small one goes on the outside, the big one goes on the inside. 3x squared minus 9x minus 10. How many times can x go into 3x squared? It can do it 3x times. Multiply, multiply again, and then subtract. So we're going to end up with a positive 6x minus 10. How many times can x go into positive 6x? It can go in positive 6 times. Multiply, multiply again, and subtract, which leaves us with a positive 20. So we have 3x plus 6, and then we have a remainder of 20, so plus 20 over our original denominator. This will be our answer, which is D. So there is our key. If you have any questions, make sure you include them in the Google Classroom comments section. Please do not email me directly. Please do not direct message me. I do not see that stuff, okay? Make sure you're watching the videos just to make sure you know how to do this stuff. New lessons start on Monday. Google Classroom starts back on Monday, but it's going to be 4 days a week. Make sure you're checking your stuff every day. And yeah, we're going to figure out how to turn all this stuff in and how to get grades. We're not worried about grades just yet, but we're going to figure all this stuff out as we go. Make sure you're keeping up with everything. You don't have to take pictures and turn it in to me yet, but hold on to it just in case you do. Okay? I'm talking about next week. Hold on to your work just in case you do. All right. Once again, if you have any questions, put them in the comment section. Have a great Friday and enjoy your weekend.